Hello，你好，Welcome back，欢迎回来to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger. On Wednesday, yeah, we said that already, February 28th, 2024. I saw on the news last night something that kind of crazy that South Korea apparently been having population issue. People are not having baby, and so the government is rolling out a bunch of new incentives to get families to have multiple children. Because according to the news, that if they don't get this sorted out soon, they're going to have a serious population issue when the current generation get too old to work. When I saw that, I kind of that kind of reminded me of the whole traditional view Chinese people had around marriage. A lot of people that don't grow up in the Chinese culture, or I believe it's the same in India, but in our type of culture, in the Eastern culture, a lot of people can't relate to what we go through when when it comes to the topic of marriage. But before we go into that, let's look at a couple of quick vocabularies. We always need to throw in a few vocabularies. First, marriage is 结婚. 结婚, that's like J-A-I or J-A, and then 婚, H-U-A-N, 结婚, I mean to get married, marriage. Um, the marriage itself as a noun is called, like when you talk about my marriage or your marriage, is called 婚姻. 婚姻. Bride is called 新娘. That's Shingnuang. 新娘. And grooms is called 新郎. So just one word different. 娘 is for bride and 郎 is for groom. So 新娘 is bride and 新郎 is groom. The wedding itself is called 婚礼. 婚礼. So when it comes to marriage, a lot of the time you can't get away from that word 婚, uh, which basically means uh, to build a family, to be mortal, to be normal. Um, it's a very old word in Chinese culture. So a lot of time when monks say they have to 结婚, it's not just about the food. 结婚 also means the 婚 in marriage, so they cannot get married. Right? So okay, let's move on. So as I was saying, a lot of people who don't grow up in the Eastern culture can't imagine the kind of pressure that can be brought on by family members. I hear so many of my friends, especially ones from China, talk about it as soon as they turn 20, 25, 30. Oh my God, if you are 30 and you're not married, good luck. Anytime you have a family gathering, that's all they want to talk about. They wonder if you're gay. They wonder if you're impotent. They wonder if you're some kind of weirdo. How come you can't get married? Don't you know your duty is to bring children into this world? Your duty to your family is to get married. Yada yada yada. And go on and on. And then after you get married, if you don't have children, the same pressure goes on. I have friends right now that they've been married, but they don't have kids, and they are in their 30s and 40s, and they are still they're so scared of talking to their parents, their aunties and uncles, because every single time it's like, how come we don't have kids? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with your wife? What's wrong with your husband? How come we don't have kids? It's just craziness. In fact, there are so many single young men and women from my culture that during family holidays they'll choose to work rather than go home because they just can't deal with that kind of nagging and pushing and all these dates, all these people that their family will line them up to meet, and your mom's going to say, oh, next door, the people next door, their daughter is coming home for holiday, and I want you to go meet her. So I got you a coffee date for tomorrow. You're getting up, and you better make yourself presentable, and just like a lot of nonsense like that. Your aunt, your mom, your uncles, your cousins, every one of them got some idea in mind that you should meet this person, you should marry that person, you should go on a date, you should go for a walk, you should go for coffee, you could go watch a movie with all these men and women that you never even met before. So a lot of young men and women, they rather stay away. They won't go home at all because they're so scared of this. And some of them even go in a slightly different direction. They'll choose to hire a prostitute or escort to come home with them so they can tell their parents, this is my girlfriend, this is my boyfriend. So that will shut their parent up, at least for the time being. Just sheer craziness. Even for someone like myself who pretty much grew up in Canada and lived in Canada and doesn't have much to do with my home country and that the family members that are there. Even for me, back in 2010, I think from 2005 to 2014, uh, so almost 10 years. Those 10 years, I got pressured by my parents uh, with mercilessly, without mercy. They just were nagging me every single chance they got. When are you going to get married? If the girlfriend you are with now won't get married, then you should find another girl. There's no point having a girlfriend if you're not going to have married. When are you going to have children? You're going to be too old to have children one day and you'll regret it. It's your duty to have children. So on and on, yada, yada, yada. And so many times I had to get downright rude and aggressive with them over the phone or hang up on them to get them to stop that. So yeah, even myself, I was not immune to it. Luckily, my will is very strong. I'm very stubborn, so I was able to wear them down to the point where they stopped talking about it because I think they just gave up on me. Now, if you think that is horrible, that is unreasonable, that is bad today, then I can tell you it was a lot worse in the good old days. Yeah, good old days is not always better. Um, Today, when parents are pressuring their children to get married, most of the time, it's just out of a sense of pride. It's a selfish sense of pride. Oh, next door people are getting married. How come my children not getting married? How come I can't be a grandmother? How come I can't be a grandfather? So on. It's for they're doing it more for themselves, right? So for you to say no, there's really no problem with that. It's okay. It's legal to say no. However, in the old days, your decision to get married or not directly impact the well-being of your country, and that became a very different matter. Let's take a look at what I mentioned about South Korea. Why does the government care so much if people are having sex and having baby? Why does it matter? Don't we already have enough people in the world? Well, it matters because if most of your population is getting old and you're not getting enough new baby, then you can already see that 30 years down the line, you're going to run out of workforce. No one going to be able to work. The young one will be too young. The old one will be too old. Okay, so when how much people get married and have children, it does directly impact the country. in a big way, especially in the old day. When we go back to ancient imperial China, uh, the population of a country directly uh, influence how strong the country was. Okay, because back then there's everything had to be done by people. If there's a war, if you're going to battle, the amount of people you can bring to the battlefield directly impact the result of that battle, right? If the other guy have 10,000 people and you can bring 10 million people, your people don't even have to have weapons. Your people just kind of going to win by default, right? If the other country have 10,000 farmers and your country have 10 million farmers, you are automatically going to have more food. And more food translates to more money translates to better weapon translates to you can bully the other country. Okay, so in the old days, population was vitally important to the well-being of a country, even including China. So, uh, traditionally speaking, Chinese people have always been educated to have children, to get married. Not having children was like the biggest sin in Chinese culture, right? This sounds crazy. Like the biggest sin is not cheating, it's not murder, it's not genocide, it's not any of that. The biggest sin is not having children. Uh, yeah, I know. I am a sinner. What can I say? Uh, in those days, people have slogans and phrases such as "You should get married when you are an adult. If you are not married, then you are a joke." Or as Confucius himself said, "When you're 15, you should be a mother. When you're 20, you should be a father." Right? Confucius himself was living up to that. He got married when he was 19. He already became a father when he was 20. So the idea that getting married was the right thing to do, the only thing to do, having children was your sacred duty, was drilled deep, deep into Chinese people's society and psyche. And to reinforce that, Chinese government, the imperial government, had four ways of making sure that people were uh, getting married and doing the hanky panky and making children. Today we are going to look at the four ways of how Chinese government would influence people's marriage. Like I said, if you think what your parents doing to you nowadays is bad, check this out. Number one, the government would enforce you getting married. And how did they do that? The imperial court and imperial government created an official system, an office called 媒氏. 媒氏. What is 媒氏? 媒氏, well, 媒, some of you know in Chinese culture, 媒人 means the matchmaker. Like you see the movie Mulan, right? But when we look at a movie like Mulan, you just think the matchmaker is some kind of busybody, someone who just like matchmaking for different families to make money, and they don't really have any authority or power. That's not always the case. If this matchmaker work for the office of 媒氏, then their power is quite great, right? If if your neighbor turn you in, if you are reported, say, hey, Johnny Tiger is uh, over 18 and he's 25 now, and he's still not married. If someone report you to the 媒氏 had the authority of sending a matchmaker to you and enforce marriage, and they will match you up to whoever they like, whoever that's single nearby, that's of the suitable uh, age and gender, and that's it. You're getting married, like it or not. It doesn't matter if you don't like the person. Doesn't matter if the person is really ugly. Doesn't matter if the person is got a bad temper or a bad breath or what. It doesn't matter. If the 媒氏 said you're getting married, you are getting married. Right? To defy the 媒氏 would break the law, and you can uh, disgrace the family and get punished. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more. So this is why traditionally a lot of parents do their best. A lot of parents would do their best to force their children to get married before they become legal age. Otherwise, the 媒氏 would get involved. And at least if your parents are picking someone for you, if your parents are arranging a marriage for you, your parents know what kind of stuff you like. Your parents know what kind of food you like. Your parents know what kind of stuff you don't like. So most likely your parents going to find you someone who's, well, maybe not 100% suitable, but at least in their mind, they're going to find you someone who's okay. Okay, it's not going to be as bad as when the 媒氏 matchmaker come in and just match you up to the first person available in the neighborhood, and you are kind of screwed for life in that case. So that's the first way that the government made sure that people were getting married. It was by implementing the 媒氏 office, the matchmaker office, that would come in and legally and forcefully get you married if you were of legal age. The second way that the government enforced marriage was by creating opportunity. Traditionally speaking, Chinese people have always been very, very, well, for lack of a better word, reserved, conservative, traditional, very shy. You're not supposed to talk to another gender. You're not supposed to hold hand in public. You're not supposed to even touch each other's bare skin, or like men and like women should not show their bare skin in public or stuff like that. And that, of course, it's counterproductive because when you don't get to touchy-feely and talk and joke around and hang out, how are you going to get attracted to the other person? Well, to combat that, Chinese government implemented a lot of exceptions, usually around festivals like Mid-Autumn Festival, Lantern Festival, Midsummer Festival, Dragon Boat Festival, etc., etc. New Year celebration. There's always games and different events centered around men and women to get to know each other, and a lot of the traditional things that would be taboo, such as no touching or no exposing your skin, would be forgiven during these events. These events were made for men and women to uh, sort of relax and be off their guard and just go out there, have fun, meet women, meet men, and yeah, hopefully you'll get married. And so this was the second way of the Chinese government enforcing people were getting married, was by creating opportunity for men and women to meet each other and hang out with each other and have fun and play games and play music and write poetry, etc., etc., etc. The third way the government would use to enforce people were getting married and having children was by rewarding them. And so this was a simple one. When you got married, you would get rewarded, usually money or livestock. A lot of time when you get married, you'll get a horse or a goat or sheep, and then when you have your first child, you will get something else, and then you have your second child to get something else. Incidentally, Confucius's first son, his firstborn, name was Kong Li, Kong Li, Kong Li. The Kong is Confucius's actual last name, and Li means carp. Carp, the beautiful big fish you see in Japanese movies in the pond. When they show gardens, they always have these big beautiful fish in the pond. So that's called Li. And how? Why did he named his son Kong Li, the carp, uh, because when his son was born, that was the award given to him by the government, was a big carp fish, so he could make fish stew for his wife. And so he named his son after that fish, which is kind of ridiculous. But anyway, the reward system was very popular with people because a lot of time, poor people, uh, that's the only way for them to generate a lot of wealth and get livestock, get horses, get cattle, was to continuously make children, and hopefully your children grow up and get married and make more children, and every time that happened, the government would reward your family, and that was a easy way for people to generate wealth. Last but not least, of course, now we talk about the fourth way of how the government would enforce marriage was by punishment. Yeah, there's reward and there's punishment. If you get married, the government gives you something, gold, silver, livestock. If you don't get married and someone report you, hey, Johnny Tiger is 25 years old and he's still not married, sorry, now you get punished. The government will give you a fine that you have to pay when and then say, okay, pay the fine, and then you have 1 year to get married. If a year later you're still not get married, then you got to pay the fine again, double the amount. There has been family that got outright ruined by these fines, these punishment, because their kids refused to get married or couldn't find anyone to be married to. So yeah, being stubborn. If you were stubborn and you didn't want to get married, you would end up getting your family punished over again and again and again until you're finally married. And to further enforce marriage, Chinese government even had loopholes in the system that they built in, such as uh, when you are a widow, you are allowed to get married again, and you can marry widows can marry widowers or people who are single after a certain age. So if you're a widow, most likely you will be forced to get married to some old single guy who's not been married his whole life, or maybe his wife passed away, etc., etc. So the government would actually force widows and widowers to get married with each other. In this case, even when the widows in question or widowers in question refuse, their parents, their family member have the right to marry them off. And if they continue to refuse, then the punishment system come in. The family will get punished over and over again until you finally comply. So as we see that living in ancient China was definitely not all peaches and roses. You didn't have a lot of freedom, even including marriage. Um, it's not just your parents trying to pressure you. In the old days, it would be the entire country, your government, your neighbors, your village officials, your town officials, your city hall trying to pressure you, force you into getting married when you're of the suitable age. That just makes us feel so much better living in the modern world, doesn't it? Well, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Tomorrow we got a big one. Tomorrow, Toy Thursday, will be awesome. All right, I'll be showing off the entire loot, the entire um, collection I brought back from California tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are. Until now, until then, 谢谢 and 再见。